Diplomatic crises. The first major crisis which brought the two alliances to the verge of war was the First Moroccan Crisis, 1905, when the French and the British, on the one hand, and Germany, on the other, clashed over the French occupation of that North African country. The sudden Austro-Hungarian occupation of Bosnia-Herzegovina, a small country in the Balkans, came next, 1908. It caused the Russians to mobilize in support of Serbia, which claimed Bosnia-Herzegovina as its own, and this in turn led the Austro-Hungarians to prepare for war. Germany and Britain only just managed to calm the situation down and prevent fighting from breaking out. The next crisis came in 1911 when France sent troops into Morocco to deal with some anti-European riots there. Germany demanded that the French make concessions to her, Germany, in order to continue with a free hand in that part of the world. International talks again averted war, but the level of tension and suspicion had been ratcheted up further. The Balkan Wars. A war in 1912 between the new Christian countries in the Balkans, on the one hand, and Turkey on the other resulted in Turkey losing practically all her European territory. However, the Balkan countries immediately started quarreling amongst themselves, with one side supported by Russia and the other by Austro-Hungary. A second war broke out, 1913, this time with most of the Balkan countries, including Turkey, fighting against Bulgaria. Bulgaria was heavily defeated. These two Balkan wars greatly increased anger and distrust within the Balkans, and again notched up tension between the great power alliances. Austro-Hungarian hopes of further southward expansion were now effectively blocked by a string of states supported by Russia. Furthermore, these pro-Russian states could meddle with ease in the affairs of the Balkan provinces of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. This they did, and World War I resulted. The outbreak of war. 1914, Sarajevo. On June 28, 1914, an Austrian Archduke, Franz Ferdinand, and his wife Sophie were assassinated in Sarajevo, the capital of Bosnia-Herzegovina. There was evidence that the Serbian government were at least aware of the plot, if not a party to it. Germany offered to support a furious Austro-Hungary in gaining compensation from Serbia. Thus fortified, the Austro-Hungarian government sent Serbia a list of demands which no government of an independent country could possibly agree to. They essentially demanded that Serbia give up its independence. The Serbian government requested that the Austro-Hungarian government modify these demands. This was refused. Russia began mobilizing its army and navy in support of Serbia, and Germany thereupon also began to mobilize. The Austro-Hungarian Empire declared war on Serbia on the July 28th. Russia started mobilizing in support of Serbia on the July 30th. Germany declared war on Russia on the August 1st, and on France on August 3rd. Britain declared war on Germany on August 4th, in support of its ally, France. Austro-Hungary declared war on Russia on August 6th. France and Britain declared war on Austro-Hungary on the 12th. World War I was underway. 1914, the German High Command considered Russia to be their main enemy. They assumed that it would take the Russians 6 weeks before they were fully mobilized. Following their well-developed Schlieffen Plan, therefore, the Germans set about throwing most of their forces against the French to quickly knock them out of the war. Then they could turn against Russia. The German invasion of Belgium. Immediately on declaring war on France, Germany invaded Luxembourg, and 2 days later, Belgium. Working to the detailed timetable worked out beforehand, Britain at once began calling up volunteers. Hundreds of thousands of new recruits would soon be joining the army each month. By 1916, nearly 2 million men would have volunteered. Britain was also able to call on the support of the overseas territories of the British Empire. The self-governing dominions of Canada, Australia and New Zealand all declared war on the Central Powers when Britain did, and soon forces would be coming in from these countries, as well as from Britain's colonies in India, Africa, the West Indies and other territories. These forces would make an invaluable contribution to Britain's war effort, fighting under Britain's direction. In the summer of 1914, however, the country had to make do with what it had available at the time. It immediately sent an army, the British Expeditionary Force, to France. This was far smaller than any other belligerent army, and on hearing of its size, the German Kaiser is said to have called it a contemptible little army. It was still almost half the fighting strength of the entire British Army. The British Expeditionary Force, BEF, arrived in France on August 7 and took up its position on the northern flank of the French army, the Mediterranean. Although a member of the Triple Alliance with Germany and Austro-Hungary, Italy announced its intention of remaining neutral in the coming conflict. On the August 2 the Turkish government had entered into a secret alliance with Germany. It closed the Dardanelles, and hence the Black Sea, to Allied shipping on the 5th, thereby effectively isolating Russia from aid from its allies. The other main route between the Western Allies and Russia was through the Baltic, now tightly controlled by the German Navy. The Germans had two powerful battlecruisers near Italy, the Goeben and the Breslau. The British and French fleets were expecting these either to attack the French convoys ferrying Algerian troops to the war zones in France, or to head west into the Atlantic, to attack shipping there. In fact, the German ships headed for Istanbul, the capital of Turkey. Once there, to avoid Turkey breaching its neutrality at this time, the two powerful warships were officially transferred to the Turkish Navy. However, they retained their German officers and crew, and the German admiral became the commander-in-chief of the Turkish Navy.